All right, so thank you everyone for signing up for the watercolors basics class. I'm very surprised, happily surprised that so many people have signed up. I didn't realize that there was so much interest in a requirement for basics, but I do see a lot of my current students struggling with just a few I guess, fundamental problems that might occur with watercolor painting. So I'm going to go over this as if you have never touched watercolor before. So if you feel that there's some information that is too rudimentary and you don't need it, please ignore it. And if there is something in that that you feel I have not covered, please feel to ask your questions. If it helps if you just click on the raise hand, so then I know that somebody needs to ask a question, then I can just ask you directly. All right. Okay, so I have shared a booklet with all of you, which is about the maintenance of watercolor. So I'm going to go through that booklet as well. And I'm also going to introduce you to watercolors and all the materials that we use, including the paints, the brushes, the paper, and all of that. So let's start with first the watercolor kit. So for all of you, I've asked you to get an 18 color watercolor kit. This kit is one of the best that I have found for the price that we get. This one has all the necessary shades that you will need for painting for at least 5 years. I can guarantee that. You don't need more than this unless you're making large format paintings. So in that case, you can use tube colors. So let's go to the explanation on the booklet itself. Okay. All right. So first things first, we usually use a spiral bound book pretty much like that, and I insist on a paper that is about 130 GSM. So a GSM is the weight of your paper. The difference between a regular paper like this, which is 130 GSM, and if you find some fancy papers like this, which would be, so this is 300 GSM. It's a 140 pounds, but 300 GSM. I'll just explain how this works. So this paper is a lot thicker. It's almost like card paper. I cannot fold it. I can't do anything with it. And it's got a little bit of a tooth. You can see in the shadow area, there's a little texture on this paper. So this paper is excellent for high-end watercolor work. But that means also that this paper absorbs a whole lot of water. So you have to be comfortable with that amount of water on paper. The more water you use on that paper, the longer it takes to dry. And everything about watercolor is layering one layer of paint or pigment on top of another. So it just is better to use a slightly less heavy paper than a heavy paper when you are beginning. There are several other advantages also. So the heavy paper especially, this paper is called a cold press paper. So let me explain that to you as well. So this is a cold press paper, and the other one you get would be a hot press paper, and this is a hot press paper which is smoother to the touch. This paper will have a little bit of a grainy texture. So when you want to draw any fine work on it, it becomes a little tedious to do fine work on this paper. The other information that you'll also get is how much cotton the paper contains. Most paper that we use, regular drawing paper, is recycled paper, and it has very small quantity of cotton. This one is a high-end paper which will have anywhere between 25 to 100% cotton. The more cotton it has, the more expensive the paper becomes. So let me just write all this down for you so that you know what info we have. Now, one thing that I do insist on is making notes. So feel free to make your notes, but ensure that your notes are very pretty. Like these were my notes for when I did my first watercolor basics class, and I have written it in the form exactly the way it was then printed out. So I want you to make an attempt to make your notes look pretty. Your lettering does not have to be really fancy, but just think about organizing your information thus. So I'm going to start off and we will make the same notes. A little bit of drawing is also going to be taught here. So, materials. Paper, 130 GSM, and I am going to write hot press, but on the regular drawing books you will not see that. You just touch it and you know that it almost seems as if it's been ironed. So that's the paper we will use. And it will be A4, just for convenience. Now the difference between these colors, which are cakes, and you have tube colors as well. So you have cake colors and you have tube colors. Cakes are just more convenient to use. They are easier to carry. And tubes are great for large scale painting because you can squirt out a whole lot of color onto your palette, make a big puddle of a wash. So use tubes if you're going to make large scale paintings. And for regular paintings, cakes are perfectly fine. Regular size. And eventually you can also refill from the tubes onto the cakes. If you have a certain shade that you're running out of, you can just refill from the tubes itself. So this is our material. We have our paper, we have our paints. Now we come to the brushes. The brushes I have recommended are the S68 series. That is from Camlin. That's a wonderful series of brushes, and they are kept in a holder like this because these are really delicate brushes. They are very soft and they usually have a nice point which you can maintain if the brushes are well protected. So when you keep the brushes, try to keep them in some kind of a roll-up pouch. Avoid keeping them in a box in which they will probably be bent like that. And the box also moves back and forth, so there will be a lot of damage to the brushes. Then one fine day when you want to use the brushes, they're all looking a little sad. So keep them in a roll-up pouch like that, which has ample space on top, maybe a flap to cover. And you can roll this and carry it anywhere, and maybe the brushes will last like 100 years. When you are working at home and you want to keep your brushes, store them in a container like this. So they are kept upright and they will dry better also. It is also sometimes recommended to hang your brushes from some stand like this, but our brushes are not that high end, so you can just keep them like that. This works well also. As we go further, I'm going to show you how to use the brushes even when painting so that you can maintain their tips. Then you need a water bowl. Look for a water bowl that is pretty solid so that you don't topple it over. This one is a nice convenient bowl which compresses. It's made out of silicone, but you don't really need this. I use this at home and also for travel. Any old used container is fine as long as it's bottom heavy so that it doesn't topple over. And the best rags are old clothes, t-shirts, cotton sheets, whatever you have. Just fold them up and you can keep using them. And the more you use them and the more you wash them, the better and softer they get. So please refrain from using tissue. If you are in the habit of using tissue, you're just wasting a whole lot of paper when this can again last you like 20 years. All right, now for brush maintenance, I've already covered how to store them, avoid the box. When we are painting with a brush, I'd just like all of you to take any one brush in your hand, and if you have new brushes, you'll see how carefully the tip has been designed. Oh, 1 second, somebody is trying to join. Let me just help her out. Okay, so now this brush, I'm going to just give you instructions right now, which we will practice later on. So on the back of your hand, I want you to just touch the brush so gently that you should not be able to feel the brush. That is the kind of touch I would like you to use when you are applying paint onto the paper. Whereas all other mediums, whether it's pencil, pen, or pastels, color pencils, acrylics, oil paints, they require the brush to really press and apply the medium onto the paper. Watercolor and the watercolor paper have a common genesis. In the making of paper, water is used. So it is very happy if water is applied onto it. And watercolor is very happy when it is mixed with water. So they both are very happy to work with each other. You really don't have to force them to have some interaction. The moment you come into contact, they come into contact with each other. It's almost like they rush to each other. So one of the fundamental problems that people have is that they try to paint too hard, and it almost seems as if the paint and the paper is saying, just chill, we are on it. All you need to do is contact paper and instantly it will stain the paper, and that is all you need to do. So our purpose is just going to be aim to stain. Just keep remembering that every time you are painting. So when you're painting this, we need a light touch. When you wash the brush, you also do not go right to the end and press the brush so that you are destroying its top. So I'm just simulating this. You go all the way down and do this like, oh, it's like if this is happening to your brush, it is silently dying and crying. What you need to do is this is your container, just let it swim in the water, drain and twist your brush as it comes out, and just keep it on either your rag, or if you have a pen holder or a pen rest, just keep it like that, and this will remain nice and pointed, ready for your next action. The other thing also not to do is to dunk your brush in the container and keep it like that. Because what's happening at the bottom is that the tip is getting bent, and it will stay bent for God knows how long, hoping that you will use it in this session, but by the end of the time it comes out, its tip has gone and bent, and you will blame the brush for it. I have done this a lot of times because we have never been told to look after our brushes in this manner. So that is point number 3. And the fourth point is, when you are wiping the brushes on the rag as well, you will only use a backward action, twist the brush like that, so you are reinforcing its tip. If you look after your brushes, they will look after you. Okay, so keep these in mind. Dry the brushes, and once in a while, if you feel like washing them, You can use a little bit of soap, just regular hand soap is fine. Make a lot of foam in your palm, and then keep pressing your brush into the foam like this and moving it backwards. Again, we don't want to do any vigorous action. At best, you can press and pull the brush and remove the soap, and in the end, just twist it, bring it to a tip, and leave a little soap on the brush so that soap becomes a little tough and maintains the tip. Okay. All right. Now I have covered cakes and tubes, palettes. So when you're using palettes, we typically only use the back of this as a palette. You do not need anything more. But if you feel you have too many colors to use, then just use anything that is non-greasy, and a light colored plate. Anything from your kitchen is also fine. The light color helps you to assess whether you've got the right shade or not. That is why you need to keep it light. Paint brushes, we have a whole range of paint brushes, usually a few round and maybe one or two flat brush is fine. I generally recommend that you use synthetic hair brushes just to be polite to animals, and synthetic hair brushes now are really good, so you don't need to go for natural hair. They're too expensive and God knows how they're made. Alright, so then we covered paper, we covered water container, rag is done. Now, if you have a small spray bottle around, just any old spray bottle that you can clean out and put some water in, use this to spray on your kit before you start. This way, your kit, all the colors are activated, and you don't have to resort to this silly action of taking one drop of paint and putting this. I do this all the time, but I know it's really silly. So a spray really works. I'm going to hunt for mine. Then we use this a paper tape. Now, regular paper tapes that you get in the market are good for painting, or if you ask for a masking tape, they will give you a cream color tape, which is generally used by painters. And those strips have got a very strong adhesive, which tends to strip away our paint. So, sorry, not our paint, the fiber of our paper. So these are the paper tapes that I usually use. They're a Chinese brand, and all they say is paper tapes. So I don't know what the name of the brand is, but you can look at regular stationery stores generally have them. You will find a set of about 6. The next one is a kneadable eraser. Oh my god, my kneadable erasers are missing. Just give me a second. Yes, so they fit in here. This is a soft eraser which is pliable. So in order to use it, you might get it in a tablet form. So just break it up and soften it by kneading it. And very frequently keep kneading it so that it remains pliable like that. If you don't knead it often enough, then it tends to become a little tough, and then erasability is compromised. This eraser also starts drying up very fast, so look for a small container in which you can store it, and this will last you forever and ever. The pencils we use are regular 2B pencils. So something like this, even like an Apsara dark 2B pencil is perfectly fine. If you have fancy pencils, they are always welcome, but I try to keep the basic cost of materials optimal, not too expensive just because. And we have very nice student grade material also that we can use. All right, so this is now going to start becoming the practical part. So I'm going to stop talking now and we're going to start painting. So just one thing, If you work with a lot of paper projects and if you have scraps of paper, generally in this the 130 GSM size, then keep them handy because we use them to test out colors. Don't throw them out. And even a small scrap of paper is fine because in the beginning, that's the one thing that you will struggle with is trying to get the right shade. For various reasons, that right shade becomes very difficult. Cool. So I think I have covered everything. Now we are going to start with making a color chart. So a color chart is made to become familiar with your kit. Those of you who are using this kit from before may not have this, but all of these watercolor kits come with this card paper, which I have no idea what to do with. But the important part is it comes with the names of the colors. So we generally just take the sheet and throw it out. But this is the important sheet which you are going to use to make your color chart. So in order to make this, take a small sheet of paper which is going to be about this card size so that you can make a color chart that fits in this. From the back of your book, where you have the same paper that you're going to use, mark this area, make a fold and cut out a paper that's about that wide. Okay, this part everyone can do with me. So you'll get a sheet about this size. If you're using an A4 size book, it'll be a little bigger than the width of our watercolor kit. So don't tear it out. Just make a fold so that that paper fits in. And you can use this fold as a handle to pick up your sheet. Because if you don't have this, like if your sheet is lying like that, it'll just take you forever and ever to try to pick this up. So keep it, don't tear it off. You can just fold it in and it can just remain as the pickup handle. Alright, now what we have to do here is fairly simple, fairly straightforward. You have your watercolor kit. I'm just keeping these colors here so it's more convenient. And based on the position of your cakes, the chart will have all the names and the numbers of the shades. So we have lemon yellow, gamboge hue, orange, yellow ochre, scarlet, light red, burnt sienna, crimson, burnt umber, cobalt blue, ultramarine, cerulean, emerald green, viridian, saprine, black, white and raw umber. So raw umber is in between black and white. These are our 18 colors. Those of you who have the C24 or the 24 shades will have a wider box and you will have 6 extra shades. Essentially what you have to do is cut out a sheet the size of the colors, the space of the colors, and in this now we are going to make 18 circles. Now I I wouldn't want you to make them very casually because composition practice is something you can do even with something like that. So, what we're going to do is allot space differently. We have to make 18 squares in this part, plus we need to leave extra space over here to write which colors these are and what paper this is. Every time you change the paper, you ought to make a new color chart because the colors look different in every paper. So if you change from a 130 GSM drawing paper to the Montval cold press paper to Brustro hot press paper, you should make this chart beforehand so you understand how watercolors or your colors behave on the different papers. So we are going to leave about an inch of space on this side, and you will make a little bit of a pincher. Don't fold the paper, just pinch the paper so you get a center line. And on either side of this center line, I don't know if you can see it, I have folded just a little over here, only on one side. So I get this line. It is not at the center because I've left some extra space to write the color and the paper. So this is my line, and on either side of the center, even the horizontal center, I'm going to make a small circle. Now this is the size of the circle that we're going to make to put in the colors, and this is the distance which I have just arbitrarily decided. And I'm going to compose it in such a way that I leave the same amount of space on either side. Now in this case, don't worry about the quality of your circles. If you want, you can make squares. Even if you make this circle 2-3 times, that's fine. Just maintain the size as best as possible and the space in between. Once you make the center row, you can then use the same amount of space and make it on the other side. Now we have to write the name of the color and the number of the color around this circle. So we need to have a little extra space around these circles too. Now the in-person classes get a printout of this. They don't do this by hand. But I enjoy every bit of this, so no problem making it also. So we'll just take a few minutes and paint some of the colors onto this chart. You can finish this later if you want to. So here's how I'm taking paint in. I am going to gently roll the brush. I'm sorry if this is going to sound like so childish. Of course, you know how to use brushes, but sometimes I feel that these are bits of information that I was never told, and I've used my brushes so harshly that I feel compelled to give this information. If it's extra, please forgive me. So take this color, very little bit on the tip, and apply it. If it is, now the yellows will get applied very easily. Wash your brush, wipe it, wet your brush again, and then again do the same process. Roll, pull, and apply. In the beginning, you may not know how much paint is enough, so that's okay. That's whatever you get on your brush, just put it, and still that will be enough for right now for this exercise. And you don't need too much paint, by the way. Now, while you're painting this, I'd just like all of you to check how many of you are right-handed and how many of you are left-handed. Which side of your working hand are you keeping your paints? So, right-handed people should ideally keep your paint and water and brushes and rag on your right hand. Avoid going over your painting like that to take paint or water or to wipe, because your hand, your sleeve, anything can just um, damage your work. Keeping your colors on in front for a small piece of art is perfectly okay. But when I have the in-person classes, I realize that this is also something that many people don't really pay attention to, simply because it's never a consideration till you destroy your first painting with some kind of sleeve toggle or whatever, and you feel, why did I not think of this before? So I'm going to save you all that misery. Okay, now while you're painting, also another note on posture. Your non-working hand is your anchor. So hold your work, your book, your paper with your non-working hand. So right-handed people, keep your left hand down. That will balance your posture as well. It will lighten your painting and drawing hand. So your lines will be a lot better, your painting will be a lot lighter. If you're in the habit of holding your chin or your head or your, I don't know, other body part, because usually we have learned to do that uh, writing, and we adopt the same posture when we are drawing or painting, and that leads to a very heavy hand. Now, even for painting something like that, use a medium sized brush like a 4 or a 6, even a 9 would be good. If you're using a 1 or a 2, then chances are that you're taking a long time to paint this. You should be able to fill out this circle, which is maybe the size 1 centimeter across, in about 3 or 4 strokes. That's all. Okay, so I have painted these 3 colors, and before I go ahead, I'm going to write the names of these 3 colors. When you have too many, or if you finish all the colors, there are chances that you might write the wrong name in the wrong place. I'm telling you all of this because I have personally done all of this. I have drawn all this, and then I have, without even thinking, started writing cerulean blue, ultramarine blue, cobalt blue, where the reds are, without thinking, just mechanically, and then I've regretted that. So, how are we going to write the names? Even that has to look good.
Aditi, can I just interrupt?
Yes, yes, go ahead.
I have got a 24 color box. So
Okay.
I'm doing it the same way that chart paper available is showing. Is that okay?
Yes, so you will have a different order of the colors.
So is it okay or what should I do?
Yeah, yeah, as long as you know where which color exists and what the name of the color is, it's okay.
Okay, fine, fine. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Okay, now when we are writing these names, you can give yourself some guidelines. Like you can make a little line on the side and at the bottom. And on this we can write the name. So try to avoid your regular handwriting because that is so functional. You can just write in all caps, write small and careful letters, write lemon on one side, yellow on this side, and then on the third side you can write the number. So my, I guess, philosophy is, one minute, for Gamboge I'm going to turn it around. I'm just going to write Gamboge and omit writing hue. Hue really means nothing. Gamboge is good enough. Write the number on the side. Yeah, so my philosophy is that every time you are required to make anything, it can be a piece of art. All you need to do is just be slow and careful and considerate. So, even something like this can potentially look beautiful. It's just that we feel who is going to look at this. So, it almost seems as if only if somebody is going to look at it, we are going to put the effort in it. But things need not be that way, they don't need to be that servile. Okay, now I seem to have very little space here, but I'm still going to fit my yellow ochre here. But in the event that you don't have space, you can always just write an ochre here. And the number here. Now the number is not the most significant part over here, but the number helps you to know that this very shade or something similar in this number will be available in tubes as well. So when you run out of paint, run out of colors like how my kit is, I can always use a scarlet. Look for a 393 and squirt a little bit of that onto my cake and replenish without having to buy a new kit. Now this kit is not very expensive, but you know the materials are so hardy, they can last forever and ever. So we can really do our bit in not buying excess stuff by finding ways to reuse the same kit. Now, I think this kit, I should start putting years on mine. This kit has lasted me a good 3 years easily. And whenever I need extra paint, I just squirt extra on these in these little divots and I'm good to go. Alright, so you can continue this later and finish this off because this is just a matter of finishing off the chart. I don't need to explain anything more. Many of you might have already finished it. Now for the letters, for labeling over here. Turn it to the side and we are going to write color chart over here. So with your pencil, make a baseline. And on that, first we will write the name of our kit. So this is Camel. You don't have to write Artist Watercolor. You can just write Watercolor C18, which is written over here. You can write cakes as well. So Camel, we have to write 5 letters, which we will write in this space. And the letter M comes in the center. So mark the spot where the M is going to come. And then next to that, make 2 lines where the rest of the letters are going to come on top of it. So once you have budgeted the space, it becomes a lot easier to write these letters. The aim is to keep the distance between the letters the same. And we can just use our newly wetted paints to write or paint the letters on. Camel, the rest of it you can write with a pen. Watercolor cakes, or just C18. And the paper is just drawing paper. So you make a note of that, drawing paper 130 GSM. Now for the rest of the sessions, we will be using this as our guide and our reference. So later on, today or even tomorrow, until next week, you can just fill out the rest of the colors and keep this with your with this sheet, this butter paper sheet with the names in the kit. And the box you can discard, because so far I have not found any use for the box. Even this one, this card paper you can keep, although I haven't found any use for that, but till we find it, why waste? Okay, any
Can you,
questions?
uh,
Yeah.
have a question? Can
Yes.
you please tell me which color the one that is the line that is unmarked, which you've done? Because I don't have those colors in with me.
Oh,
The
you
one that
don't?
you've not done. No.
All right. So can
Mm.
I share a picture of that on the group so that
Yes,
we
yes,
finish
that'd
that
be great.
later? I'll do that.
Yep.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. So now let's start with the painting bit. So the few things that you need to know about watercolor are that uh, put it out of your head that watercolor is the hardest medium. It is not. I joke about this, but I feel sometimes that it's the oil painting and the acrylic color lobby that has started this rumor. It is not the hardest medium. In fact, it is probably the easiest medium to work with if you understand what the medium can do for you. So, watercolor was invented for just making sketches. When oil colored artists wanted to make paintings, they wanted to get an idea of what colors they should use, and so they started making their sketches in color using watercolors. Just a little bit of pigment with water, put it on paper. That is what watercolor became. But over time, watercolor itself started becoming its own medium because there were a lot of artists who found that it was easier to paint with watercolor rather than with oil. It works quicker. You can do a lot of things. It's very versatile. And literally from the 17th century, a lot of artists who work with botanicals have been using watercolor. If watercolor was that difficult, they would probably have stuck to oil paints. But oil paints need canvas or wood or something on it. Watercolor can work on a medium that can also be portable. So it's a lot easier that way. The the misunderstanding about watercolor comes from the fact that you feel that you cannot make any changes once you have painted on the paper. And I guess this comes from our belief that whatever we are going to do first is going to be wrong. There are going to be a few things that will be unexpected, but we will be layering. So a lot of watercolor paintings, all watercolor paintings, in fact, depend on layering. But in most other mediums that we arrive at to watercolor, you don't really do so much of layering. So you feel that the first layer of paint that you put, if that is not working, that means that's the end of your painting. So that's not how things work. We first start off with laying out some washes, then we start reducing the area that we put in washes. There are paintings in which you can come up to even 10 washes before you get into details. A whole painting can be made with just washes also. And in those washes, we are trying to create different types of shades, different colors, and then create a sense of depth. So, watercolor is used to create an illusion of whatever you're trying to see, and that illusion can be created with any kind of effect or texture. So, say for example, you are making trees, you don't have to paint each and every leaf with a dot. You can make a wash and then just drop in some paint which is wet while the wash is wet, and it will create a particular pattern which can become a tree. So I want to show you these things that we can make. So the first thing we will do is understand the different consistencies of paint. You can have a very dry consistency or a very wet consistency. The first one that we will work with will be a very wet paint. And I'm going to go back to my trusted old kit to show you how to make washes. So washes are base layers which you literally make by putting down a whole lot of pigment with water and tempering the paper. So by tempering the paper, you almost make it ready for painting. I've used whatever color I had in my palette, and this is a great way to clean your palette also instead of washing it and wasting that pigment. So this is the most runny consistency you can have. And this is the consistency we need for washes. And the other ingredient that we need for washes, other than the paint and the brush, is gravity. So I want you to observe this. Don't paint with me, just watch this because it's important how these washes are applied. We have to keep loading our brush, like imagine this is your car and this is the petrol pump. You will not go to the petrol pump after you've run out of fuel, right? So make 2-3 strokes and reload the brush. So I want you to see this action of how frequently I'm reloading the brush as well. I'm holding the brush at an angle of about 30 to 40 degrees so that when I make a line over here, much of the wet paint comes towards the bottom of that line. And all I need to do is give that wet paint a place to run down towards. I can take as much time as I want to make this wash, as long as the bottom edge is wet. And the slower you do it, the more deliberate your stroke is, and you can also keep your hand light. Now notice where I'm holding the brush. It's really far away. I'm just contacting the paper as lightly as, remember I told you to hold on the back of your hand, and then just staining the paper. Aim to stain. And as I'm running out of paint, I'll dip back in and I will continue. And when I feel that I want to stop painting, I will wipe my brush on the rag, just make it slightly less um, full, I guess, but it's still damp. And then I'll gently, with capillary action, pull away the paint. Wipe again and pull away the paint. It just comes up onto the brush and you will not have any excess. And the moment you flatten it, whatever excess remains will go back into the wash. Alright, do you want to give it a shot?
Yes, we'll do that.
Okay. Okay, is everyone done? If you're painting for too long, you're probably going over and over and over. Don't do that because that will create patches. Just keep moving forward, don't look back, and let it dry. All right. Now we're going to make another wash, and on this wash we are going to try a technique of paint where we will apply a second color while the original wash is still wet. So yes, let's use the same technique to make this wash, a second one about the same size, not too large. And although I'm making mine in blue, you can make any color that you want. And even the second color, I'll be making, I think I'll make a green, but you can make any color you want. And this time I'm going to leave it a little wet. So wet on wet paint is applied when you want your color to deliberately merge and create some texture. So I'm using Viridian green so that really sticks out. And while this is wet, also pretty wet, a little less runny, so it's like a medium consistency than the wash, not as runny as the wash. I'm going to just drop it onto the paper and let it spread out. So depending upon how the base layer is placed, uh, where the wet paint is, my green is going to do its own thing, and this I feel is the scary part of watercolor, the unpredictability. But what is unpredictable for beginners actually becomes the factor which helps you make illustrations which are um, stunning. So while we are in theory doing the same exercise, all of our pictures are going to look different. We may have put the same color on the same spot with the same consistency, but we will not have the same result. And that is the beauty of watercolor. You cannot predict what is going to happen. Now there is a big fat green blob over here. I don't mind it, but if you feel that maybe you don't want that, I've seen some go in with a rag and just press on that to try to pull it out in, I guess, a desperate, some kind of desperation. But use your brush, just wipe it and use the damp brush and pick the paint up. See, it just happily comes back into the brush in this like a reverse painting thing. So you just need to wipe it, keep it damp, and just.
We call this a thirsty brush thing, right?
Sorry, what is it called? Thirsty brush?
We call it thirsty brush.
Yeah,
This concept of back, I think I heard it somewhere.
yeah, it is pretty much the same. It is like a thirsty brush. Why not? And it works much better than pressing something on that, because otherwise all this beautiful texture will get smudged. Why do you want to do that? So while this is drying, on the first wash, I want you to take a thin brush now, and with the same wash, using the thin brush and a little part of the wash which is not too wet, we are going to make a few leaves. So this is how you can use washes also. It's not just for a light base color. We can use the same thing, the same shade with a thinner brush to make other stuff on it to get a very subtle design. Now here it's important to note that the size of your brush will determine the water quantity. So thin brush will have less water, a fat brush will have more water. So if you want to make a very delicate design, opt for a thinner brush. Immediately the quantity of water that it can hold is reduced and you can make better designs with it. No matter how hard you try, it won't contain the volume of water that a fat brush can. And now in this, let's try making a pattern like that. Just draw some leaves from the center. And what we are doing now is painting a wet on dry. So once your layer dries, it becomes kind of inert. And you can paint another color or another layer on top of it, and mostly the pigment will not be disturbed if your hand is light. So the two techniques we learned are wet on wet and wet on dry. These are such silly terms. Of course, this is wet on wet, of course, this is wet on dry, but it helps when you are trying to think about how a certain painting can be made. So, when you're thinking in your head, you can easily say, let me make the, the, the leaves or the trees wet on wet, and then I can make the house wet on dry, just for you to know if you need the words to explain to yourself. That's about it, or to someone else. So we have gone through three consistencies of paint at least. We made a very wet runny paint for the washes, then a medium runny paint for this green shade that we put in, and an almost dry color for the detailing. That's generally how consistency of paint works. And this is a very important topic. At what point, what consistency can be used? So, consistency of paint is the ratio of water to pigment. Now, sometimes you can have a lot of water, very little pigment. Sometimes you can have a lot of pigment and very little water. Sometimes you can have a lot of water and lot of pigment, and very little water and very little pigment also. So as long as you have a lot of water, that is wet, and if you have less water, that is a dry brush consistency. Water is the main element that determines consistency. Okay, but why the pigment is necessary is because if I wanted to make this wash really dense, I have to add more volume of pigment as well, but I have to make sure that the water is sufficient for it to flow on the paper. In most cases, if you want like a normal painting consistency, the water and pigment can be of equal quantities. So when you're making slightly complicated paintings where you have, let's see, a lot of detailing, at that point you will think about whether a consistency of paint needs to be thick or medium or light. So when you have something like this, there were at least three consistencies used over here. We had a very light wash where you had lots of water and very little pigment. After some time, the second layer was made, which had equal quantities of water and pigment. And then after that dried, we had more pigment and less water. So it was drier as well as with more pigment. However, in some cases, it was dry and less pigment also, which is like the shadows over here. If I had too much pigment over here, it would be a very dark shadow. So a dry paint does not always mean that the pigment is higher than water. We'll come to this eventually, but just so you know that these are factors, I thought I should mention it. Oops. Okay, now if your second picture has dried and you've got this tree-like structure, you can now just take a little bit of maybe a blue or even that green and make a few lines that go upward like that and branch them. Use a nice thin brush for this and use the tip of your brush. Now, This brings me to the next point. Before you make these branches, let me show you how to make lines. So make two boxes in pencil, and I'm going to show you how to draw different kinds of lines with paint. It sounds really weird drawing lines with paint, but it is a very good technique. So no matter what brush you take, there are two ways in which you can use the brush. I'm going to show you with the fatter brush. So I have a very nice thin point on this brush, and I'm going to use my green paint, the one that is not very runny. So this is a slightly thicker consistency, but not too dry. Maybe I can mix it with a little bit of blue. So two ways of drawing lines. If you want to draw a really thin line, hold your brush in the same direction as the line you want to make and try to contact just one or two hair and gently pull the line. So this should almost look as if a cat has jumped into a bucket of color and is trailing its tail behind itself. It will give you a very thin line. And for those of you who are a little nervous about making straight lines are not really the issue over here. We're just trying to keep our hand light and make lines through. They will wobble a little bit, but if they're wobbling too much, just check if you're holding the book, if your non-dominant hand is on the book, or if it is holding something else. Now the same brush, I'm using the same brush for the next lines. Now because of the nature of our brushes, which is they're parallel along the sides and then they become narrow towards the top, there is a certain curve that we get on the top here. And we take advantage of that curve to draw lines which are slightly fat but regular. So instead of pressing your brush down again, hold the brush perpendicular to the line that you're going to make. Touch the tip of the brush and a little edge of the brush, and then gently draw a line across, and you will see that it's more or less a parallel line which is all really fat. And this can be used for drawing bricks or borders. So all you need to do is maintain the pressure and you should get a nice uniform fat line, almost predictably so. And as for this edge, what's happening here? You have these extra dark blobs on the right hand side. That is happening because by the time we are making this line, the paint is drying so fast that when I lift the brush and I have this extra paint that doesn't come up with the brush, it does not evenly blend into the paint before it because the line has dried. If you don't like it, if it is really an eyesore, just go over the whole thing again and it will get absorbed.
Ma'am, I have a question.
Yes.
Why the thicker lines are in the starting it is thin, then it becomes thicker, then it becomes thin. So how do I correct it to get
It,
a even?
yeah. So check how you are sitting and if your hand is steady, because if it is becoming thick and thin, that just means that you're probably losing contact. And if you're holding your hand in the air and the hand is not anchored, it is unstable. So when I'm painting, I'll show you, my hand is stable. So there's no wave, and I can then make contact with the paper and then just drag my hand on the surface of the table. So it's steady. But if your hand is up in the air and if you're trying to do something like this, it's bound to get strained. And so some places you have pressure, some places it's inadequate. So then you get a thinner line, or the line can jump, all that can happen. So just check if
Okay.
your hand is stable.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Okay, so now that you know how to make those thin lines, let's make the trunk and branches of the trees. I'm going to use this same fat brush because I want to show you that you don't really need thin brushes if you know how to make those lines. So holding the brush in the same direction that I want the line, I will make these branches in the trees carefully. Now, the structure of the branches and all is another class altogether, but do it to the best of your ability. Just keep branching it outward. And this way you can show. I can also make a slightly fat trunk, which I can then convert into a thinner branch. So this is the way in which you would probably show trees on a foggy day without actually drawing trees or painting each and every leaf. You create the illusion. And this is the very factor of watercolor that scares everyone, that what if my color just merges into something else? It has merged, but you can make beautiful art out of that too.
Ma'am, how can we show you what we have done later?
You can, yes. So later I am going to see everyone's work, but we are already at 7:45. So I'm just going to give you one more exercise, which you will do as homework. And then I will see everyone's work. So after I show you this exercise, I'm just going to stop the recording, then I can freely see everyone's work and you won't be on YouTube channel. Okay? Unless it's critical, unless like you feel your painting is just dying, then I will emergency see your picture. Okay, so what we're going to do now is make a chart of all the colors we have. Now, this can be a very long drawn project, I know this, so I'm not going to insist that you finish it by next week, but it's a great way to see how your shades work in all sorts of conditions. So I've made a very small chart to give you an idea of what to do. Those of you who have 24 colors will make a 25 by 25 grid, and the 18 colored people will make a 19 by 19 grid, in which we are going to arrange all the colors horizontally and vertically, and then we are going to start mixing them according to their intersections. I know this sounds very confusing, so I have made a chart in yesterday's class. I'm going to show you a small bit of it so you will know what I'm talking about. Alright, so we've just taken 4 colors: gamboge, scarlet, cobalt blue, and sap green. And the one corner extra is this one. So for 4 colors, I made a 5 by 5 grid. Alright, so on the top and upright in one row and one column on the edges, the pure color is going to be placed. And then wherever they intersect, whatever the intersection dictates, you are going to mix those colors. So in this corner, in this block, I have gamboge and gamboge. So it's the same. which incidentally along the diagonal you'll have the exact same colors. So scarlet and scarlet, cobalt blue, sap green. So you'll have the same colors this way, and this way. And then in other places, you just have to run your fingers from both sides and see which colors are intersecting. So you have gambuge and scarlet. So you mix them in equal quantities and fill in the square. Okay, so I'm going to share this picture on the group. You don't have to think about it. And I'm going to also share another one in which I have made the whole chart. So you can see that as well. And like we painted the color chart, you can just paint this chart, and this will make you familiar with the painting also, give you a little bit of exercise, a lot of homework, but it's a very, very meditative, very, very easy task to complete. And that color chart, you can literally put it up in your house. It looks so beautiful with that whole rainbow of colors. You won't regret it. So I'm going to stop now for today because I think we've covered a lot and I'd like to spend the last 10 minutes in just looking at everyone's work. So just give me a second. I will stop recording